It's week 19. It's matchup 17. It might be matchup 18. I don't know. But we're talking about the week that begins on February the 24th. Fantasy basketball preview. Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and you really about to do it? Yeah, I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Blue Sky, joshloyd.bsky.social, on Twitter at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. New FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just go to FanDuel.com to get started. And while you're there, head to LockedOnDaily.com as well and find the best newsletter for your favorite NBA team. That's LockedOnDaily.com. It's free and it gets delivered into your inbox 5 days a week. We're here getting ready for a double bang. I'm open to receiving it. If you want a quadruple, that is, I will actually take 4 of them. And that would be great. Leave your comments, leave all of that stuff down below. We are very, very close, perilously close, some would say, to the fantasy playoffs. The fantasy playoffs that I suggest start next week, March the 3rd. This is, for a lot of people, the final week before playoffs. It's the final week before playoffs in the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Bowl. It's the final week before playoffs in Industry Pickup. It's the final week before playoffs in a lot of your leagues. Otherwise, it might be 2 weeks or 3 weeks to go. Regardless, if you're in head-to-head leagues, you've got to start focusing. Roto, different story. We've got 6 weeks to go of the NBA season. In that situation, again, the challenges are different, but they're also different to what they've been for the beginning of the season. So we need to, especially in head-to-head, again, weekly preview stuff for Roto Leagues. I'm glad that you're here if you're playing a Roto League. This doesn't really matter that much for you guys, let's be honest. You don't need to plan your weekly stuff as much as you do in other leagues. But now we need to look, where are you in the standings? Are you sitting at the top? Are you planning for the future? Cool. Are you desperately fighting for seeding, for a playoff position? Because you need to start maximizing. And that's what we're going to start to talk about here in the show today. So let's bring it in. It is, of course, Curling is Cool Day because Canadians need to do something to prove that it's cool. They can't cool just doesn't happen up there apart from the temperature, of course. But curling is cool. Yeah, it is. It's cool. They told us it's cool, so it is definitely cool. We're here to talk, though, about the fantasy basketball situation, the fantasy basketball schedule. So why don't we just take a look at how that schedule looks for the week? And we've got a pretty, I won't say very, I'd say pretty full week coming up. Let's have a look at how that schedule breaks down. We have got basically 6 out of the 7 days are streamable. And for some of you, all of them will be. We've got no incredibly low volume days, no sky high days. It's actually a perfect day perfect week for me as an analyst talking about this. It's a great amount of games every day. It's actually a very good day for fantasy as well, where you can't be really in situations where you have way too many players or not enough. We've got 8 games Monday, 7 Tuesday, 9 Wednesday. Now, for nearly all of you, all of those days are going to be streamable. Thursday's got 5. That's the lowest number for the week. Friday's got 10. That's the one that gets a little iffy. For about, let's say, 40%, 50% of you, you may have an overload where you've already got 10 actives, and if you add someone off the wire, you can't start them. For some of you, you will be able to. So check your roster to see whether that makes sense. Then you got Saturday with 6 and Sunday with 9. Honestly, almost the perfect. If we had 6 on Thursday, 9 on Friday, the week would be absolutely perfect from a watchability perspective, from a talking about it perspective, from a fantasy perspective. But that 10 is just, it's just sort of sitting there, marginally being annoying without being too annoying, just sort of being there and maybe throwing a slight spanner in the works. It's also a week, February the 24th through to March the 2nd, which is this upcoming week, week 19, the 19th week of the NBA season, where we've got no one playing 5 or no one playing 2. In fact, for the rest of the season, I think we have one more 5-game week, the Monday to Sunday traditional week. If you run an alternative lifestyle where those weeks don't start on a Monday, then whatever, we cover that in every daily streaming show. We've got a couple more 2-game weeks coming up, but it's all just 4s and 3s for the majority of the time. 18 teams play 4, 12 play 3. So a 3-game team is at a disadvantage. There might be some weeks where you've got 13 teams playing 4 or 15 teams playing 4. and the advantage goes to the 3s. But this week, if your guys play 3, it is a disadvantage because the majority of the league plays 4. So the 4-game teams, if you are watching on video, you can see the team names up there. Boston, Brooklyn, Charlotte, Chicago, Denver, Detroit, Indiana, the Clippers, the Lakers, Miami, Minnesota, New Orleans, Oklahoma City, Phoenix, Portland, San Antonio, Toronto, and Utah. That means that the 3-game teams, all 12 of them, Atlanta, Cleveland, Dallas, Golden State, Houston, Memphis, Milwaukee, New York, Orlando, Philadelphia, Sacramento, and Washington. That is how your week plays out coming up here. But what that allows us to do now is do the things that I think we do best. And let's start talking about quality games. Let's talk about planning this stuff out. Let's talk about how the schedule could look for us from a fantasy perspective. And we go to look at the quality games. And like I just said, all of the days, basically except Friday, can be considered quality games and can be considered streaming days. And for some of you, it will make sense that every day is a quality game day. That will just depend. But if we're going to just exclude Friday with 10 games on, there are 2 teams who play 4 quality games. All 4 of their games sit on the days that aren't Friday. It's the Hornets and it's the Spurs. All 4 of their games sit on those days. 4 games for the Hornets, 4 games for the Spurs, which is actually pretty beneficial, considering the stuff that's going on in San Antonio with the absence of Victor Wembanyama, considering that Charlotte's got injuries to players, Brandon Miller, Trey Mann. You never know when certain guys are going to play, but there's always these random players that are available. Nick Smith, Josh Green, Moussa Diabate, Yusuf Nurkic, where you can throw them in and just get some extra games out of them. It's not like the Knicks, where if you were in a situation where they had the best schedule, you go, okay, what am I doing? Trying to see what Pacom Dadier can do in 1 minute a game? I realize now that on that graphic you've got up there where I've got the 2 quality games, that I've missed the Knicks. The Knicks have 2 quality games only this week, so that's my bad. But it's the Hawks, the Cavs, the Grizzlies, and the Knicks. They have 2 quality games. What that means, through power of deduction, is every other team, so all 24 other teams, play 3 times on days that aren't Friday. So the 4 for the Hornets and Spurs is advantageous versus the 2 for these other guys. Everybody else plays 3. Everybody else plays 3 games. Some of them will play 4 total, including a Friday game. Some of them will play 3, and that is it. But that is how it plays out. So understanding that the Hornets and the Spurs are going to be more of our focus, Hawks, Cavs, Grizz, Knicks are on the downside from a head-to-head category streaming perspective. If you are in a weekly changes league or a roto league, this part, the quality game part, doesn't apply to you at all. In weekly leagues, you're just looking for volume. 4/3, doesn't matter what days they play, they are on, does not matter. But for us, when we're talking about in head-to-head leagues, I say us, I play in all leagues. And when we're talking about I've got weekly leagues, I've got daily leagues, I've got category leagues, I've got roto leagues, I've got points leagues. So when we're talking about head-to-head categories, head-to-head points, we want to know how many games you play, but importantly for the back third of your roster, we want to know when those games are on. And it is Hornets and Spurs who are getting that advantage this week. That enables me now, or should I do it right now? Is he really about to do it? No, he's not, because we're going to tell you that today's episode is brought to you by DoorDash. NBA fans, are you really about to do it? They swoosh, you save. Thanks to Dash Pass, every time a player drops 50 or more points in a game, you score a huge deal the next day. It's so simple. Someone scores 50 during the NBA regular season, well, Dash Pass members will get 50% off an order, up to $10 off the next day from noon to midnight. Well, what do you want to do? You want to order a pizza? Cool. You want to order a bucket of fried chicken? Go for it. What about a burrito? Well, you can do that as well. Whatever it is that you want, you can get with Dash Pass your favorite meals with 0 delivery fees and reduced service fees as well, plus the additional NBA 50-point offer. Sign up for Dash Pass and be ready to save. When any player scores 50 or more in a game, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order the next day, up to $10 off. Just use the promo code NBA50 from noon to midnight after a 50-point game on eligible orders of participating merchants. You must have an active Dash Pass account. Terms apply. Visit DoorDash to learn more. Said this the other day. I don't know if anyone answered. Who do you think the next player is going to be that scores 50 points in an NBA game? Leave it in the comments. Tell me what you think or who you think that could be. We're going Stream Zone. we're talking about how we're maximizing it. And the stream zone, I'm sure you've been paying so much attention to the stream zone all season, but now as we head towards the playoffs, fight for the playoffs, it becomes even more important. And I'm going to start to do something this week. I did that video, and I do recommend you go back and check it out just for theory. And I know people go, that's so stupid. Just tell us. All right? But I think the theory behind it is important, and we're going to test it. I tested it with projected stats, and the theory was pretty straightforward. We're going to test it with real-life examples over these final weeks about how we're streaming things in and how we get the value. So what I'm going to do each week from now on is I'm going to go through and say, hypothetically, in this particular team, this is the guy that I would consider dropping, give multiple options of guys that could be dropped, and then every day, according to the stream plan, these are the guys that I add, and at the end of the week, we add up the fantasy points that we got from streaming or the fantasy points we would have got from holding that particular player, and see how successful it is, or we do it through categorical value. We do it both ways. And we're going to test it out. It's the only way to sort of see how it's all good to look at the numbers in theory. And when I presented the numbers, the differences between them were overwhelming. It was gigantic. But we need to see it in practice. So let's do it. Let's go to the stream zone. So what are we going to do? There are two ways to do this. And again, I'm going to use the default 4 moves per week, which is the default on Yahoo. And it should be the default for most leagues that have got acquisition limits. And there are you know my thoughts on fantasy setups and all that stuff and different ways to do things, but that is the standard setup. Okay? What you want to do, if you want to use 4 moves on one slot, you can turn 2 quality games from a Hawk, Cav, Grizz, or Nick. They're the 2 quality game teams. You can turn one of those roster spots using 4 moves into 6 quality games. You just choose whoever you want from Monday. You then choose a Tuesday, Wednesday back-to-back. The reason we don't do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday as 2 back-to-backs is there are no Wednesday, Thursday back-to-backs. So you choose someone on Monday, you go Tuesday, Wednesday for a back-to-back, you do Thursday, Saturday, skipping the 10-game Friday in the middle, which, again, I don't know whether you're going to have the ability to stream that, but I want to provide a way to do this without worrying about that day. And then you've got 1 move left over for Sunday, who you just add whoever you want in. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. That is 6 games, 1 slot, 4 moves, and you could have dropped someone who you would have only played twice. If you want to use 2 slots with 4 moves, and you've got, say, 2 of these players that play 2 games, 2 quality games, and obviously, if not, you would definitely have 2 players who play 3 quality games at the back end of your roster, considering what was the number we had? 24 teams play 3 quality games this week. So even if you want to do it that way, but if you have like 2 players from those 4 teams that I mentioned that have 2 quality games, Hawks, Cavs, Grizzlies, Knicks, if you've got 2 of those guys, you can drop those 2 players, which would have given you 4 usable games, and you can turn it into 10. That's a +6. But even if your 2 worst players or 2 of your worst 4 players are 3 quality game players, you could turn 6 games into 10. And being a +4 is not that great. You could do the same by getting a +4 going 2 to 6. All right, so it's not that big of a deal. But it's still useful. It's still useful. And the way to do that, the way that you would do that, if you had a situation where you had nobody on your team who was considered even close to droppable, who had 2 quality games, they're all 3 quality game teams, you wouldn't do the 2 slot scenario. It wouldn't make a lot of sense. Because the only real way to do that is to target Hornets players and get them Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. 3 games in the first 4 nights. You target Hornets players to begin the week. And then Friday, with the 10 games are on, that's fine. You drop that Hornets guy and you flip him for a back-to-back San Antonio Spurs player. And this might be the only time that I tell you, hey, maybe Keldon Johnson's going to be useful. But that means that you can get 5 games out of each slot times 2 slots. That's 10 games. And you might have, those spots might have given you 4 before. They might have given you 5. They might have given you 6. If it's 4 into 10, it's a W. If it's 6 into 10, not as useful. You'd probably just want to go the 1 slot and take 2 into 6 because it's still +4 extra games, but you've got way more variability or more options. Instead of saying, I need Hornets and then I need Spurs, you can say, I just need anyone on Monday, anyone Tuesday, Wednesday, anyone Thursday, Saturday, and then anyone Sunday. And that gives you just way more flexibility and way more selection to be able to do that. So again, it's all about the common sense because 10 games is definitely more than 6. But if you have to sacrifice 6 games to get to 10, it's not as useful. And it actually brings you down. So again, looking at your own roster is going to be incredibly important. So I say all this like about the 2 quality game players. So who are some 2 quality game players that we're going to consider when I'm doing my analysis of this? Who can be droppable? So there's those 4 teams. So on the Hawks, someone like George Niang, Zach Ricochet, Karis LeVert, Clint Capella. These are all guys who have been discussed a lot in 12-team leagues or are considerably over-rostered for where I think they should be. So if you've got any of Niang, Ricochet, LeVert, Capella, they played 2 quality games this week. I'm not sure you need to hold them. If you've got, for the Cavs, DeAndre Hunter, Max Strus, Milk Jerome, you're probably really unlikely to have Dean Wade or Isaac Okoro. But if you've got Hunter, Strus, Jerome, they've only got 2 quality games this week. If you've got Zach Edey, and I'm going to do an analysis on Santi Aldama. I know he was very good last game, but I could include Brandon Clark there, but Aldama's the other high-rostered player. But if you've got Santi Aldama or Zach Edey, will it make sense with 2 quality games to move on from them and maybe turn that spot into 6? We'll find out. And then on the Knicks, the only guy that really qualifies this, because it's not Bridges, it's not Anunoby, it's not Towns, it's not Brunson, it's not Hart. It's Precious Achiuwa, the big sneeze, who's playing some bigger minutes at the moment. Again, he's got no value realistically if all those starters are there. And there's only 2 quality games for the Knicks this week. So dropping an Achiuwa, even if Josh Hart remains out, is probably going to lead to you getting your 2 games turning into 6. Precious isn't going to give you that same value. So that's how I want to look at that. That will now allow us to look at the schedule quirks. How does the schedule actually play out? Where are some little weird bits and pieces across the week? Maybe I should I do this? Let's do it. Let's bring my little face up there. There we are. There's only one team that has Monday and Tuesday off. It is the aforementioned New York Knicks. Said they've only got 2 quality games this week and they do not play until Wednesday. So a Juice McBride or a Precious Achiuwa hold. And honestly, I'll tell you this right now. If you are in an 8-team league and maybe in a 10-team league, Mikal Bridges, you're in the firing line, my guy. You're bad. This is off topic. Mikal Bridges post-trade deadline 2 years ago. Is that the biggest rug pull moment of all time? The way that people were talking about that man was insane. I felt crazy pushing back on it. I pushed back on it incredibly hard. Incredibly hard. It's what are you doing? You have to sell him in Dynasty. These people deciding he's going to be a first-round guy. So, yeah, right, crazy. And now, bro takes 1 free throw attempt per month. They gave up 5 first-round picks to get him. What is this? I like him as a role player. He's a number 4. One of the craziest. And also, it's not it doesn't mean that this happens for everybody. But what it means is if you see over these next 2 months, some player go absolutely bananas through weird circumstances, just before you start to get all hard about it, all excited, all whatever, just go, remember when Mikal Bridges did that post All-Star break and things get completely wacky? Remember it. Remember. There's only one team that doesn't play on the weekend. That's the Hawks. You'll notice that both New York and Atlanta were 2 of the teams we talked about as the 2 quality game teams, along with Memphis and Cleveland. And the Knicks don't start till Wednesday. The Hawks finish on Friday. So they do become, again, obvious situations where you can move on. That's really all in terms of quirkiness for the schedule this week. There's not anything sort of major that pops up apart from those 2 things. We're going to talk 3 games in 4 nights and 4s and 6s and back-to-backs coming up in a sec. Today's episode, though, is also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. When the game tips off, the NBA games, that is, well, the action is just getting started. And there's no better place to get in on it than with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets all through the game. So after the game's tipped off, you might have missed it or you might have seen something. And then halfway through, you go, oh my God, this team is up so much. But is there a run coming? Is someone going to come back? Are the Wizards going to do everything in their power to try and lose this game, even though they're weirdly up by 3 points? Well, you can do all that live betting, and you can combine your live bets into one same-game parlay to increase your odds. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just go to FanDuel.com to join today. That is FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. And don't forget to gamble responsibly. Okay, let's get in now and take a look at the 3-game in 4-night situations across the NBA. Sunday through to Wednesday, that's the Sunday coming up tomorrow. How do we get that double in? Now, remember, Sunday is a 10-game day, though, so you may not have streaming ability. If you do, use it to your advantage and get an extra game in on Monday. Oh, sorry, no, we'll talk about the back-to-backs in a second, but if the 3-game in 4-night period here, because those Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are all lower volume days. But there's a lot of teams here. Atlanta, Boston, Detroit, Indiana, the Clippers, Miami, Oklahoma City, San Antonio, Toronto, and Washington. Like I said at the start when talking about using the 2 slots, Monday to Thursday, there is one team with 3 games in 4 nights. It's your Charlotte Hornets. Obviously, if you have 3 games in 4 nights, and this might not be obvious to everybody, but if you play 3 games in 4 nights, there's a back-to-back in there. Has to be. All right, you've got a back-to-back. And we know what the Hornets have been doing with back-to-backs, sitting Mark Williams, sitting LaMelo Ball. I don't know whether they'll continue to do it, but I'd say there's a fair chance that they do it. Meaning that somebody's going to have an interesting option. Now, someone like Damian Barr, who I don't think is going to play every game. Remember, they have to play the Damian Barr, Wendell Moore, KJ Simpson 2-way contract juggle act. Because they can't convert them all. None of them have enough games to play all the way through. So watch for juggling of that. And that will make it hard to stream like a Barr, because he won't play 3 and 4. KJ won't play 3 and 4. Alfred Payton's 10-day maybe up, might not be. You're more looking at Josh Greens and Nick Smiths and Diabates, although he could get zeros. Nurkic, he played a back-to-back. There's Tijan Salin. There'll be options there. Seth Curry, maybe. Tuesday through Friday. Remembering Friday's got 10 games on. But Tuesday through Friday, 5 teams have 3 games in 4 nights. Boston, the Lakers, New Orleans, Phoenix, and Toronto. Wednesday through to Saturday, there are 2 teams that have it. It is Brooklyn and Detroit. And that's Wednesday to Saturday. And then Thursday through to Sunday, we've got, this is the final 4 games of the final 3 games of the week. Denver, the Lakers, Minnesota, New Orleans, and Phoenix. Now, you look at that and go, Josh, when you talked about streaming with 2 slots, how come we couldn't have used one of Denver, the Lakers, Minnesota, New Orleans, and Phoenix as the 3 game in 4 night at the end of the week? That obviously gives us more flexibility than just going a back-to-back on the Spurs. Well, the reason that I don't believe that is going to work for most people is that all of those teams, for their 3 games in 4 nights, they all play on Friday when there's 10 games on. So none of them have a Thursday, Saturday, Sunday combo. No one's got that combo, which if they had it would have been great. They would have given us tremendous value, but they don't. So they've all got Thursday, Friday, and Sunday as basically their grouping of games. And with one of those 3 games being on Friday, you might not get full use out of that. Now, if you do have Friday available to you, well, that works pretty well. That's a lot better of an option than just relying on a Spurs guy Saturday, Sunday. But again, this is where your individual league and settings and rosters all come into play. 4 game in 6 night situations. We'll start with Sunday of this coming week, or of this current week, heading into Friday. A lot of teams play 4 games in 6 nights. It's a very crowded period. Atlanta, Boston, Detroit, Indiana, the Clippers, Miami, Minnesota, New Orleans, Oklahoma City, Phoenix, and Toronto. If we start on Monday of week 19, it's Brooklyn, Charlotte, Detroit. 4 games, 6 nights. Yeah? And then Tuesday through to Sunday. So that's the end of the week. 4 games in 6 nights. Boston, the Lakers, New Orleans, Phoenix, San Antonio, and Toronto have got the 4 in 6 there. If we go to stretch it out a little bit further to 5 in 8, there's quite a few teams with the 5 game in 8 nights, including a 5 game in 7 night run. So Sunday of week 18 through to Sunday of week 19, look at how many teams play 5 games in 8 nights. It's very busy. And your Detroit Pistons play 5 games in 7 nights, Sunday through to Saturday. It's also got Boston, Indiana, the Clippers, Miami, Minnesota, New Orleans, Oklahoma City, Phoenix, San Antonio, Toronto. 5 games, 8 nights, very busy. Monday through to Monday, the beginning of week 19 through to the beginning of week 20, it's Charlotte, it's Detroit, Miami, Oklahoma City, Portland, and Utah have got 5 games in 8 nights over that time frame. So what do we look at now? Well, it's 6 games in 9 nights. There are 3 teams who have got this extremely busy period as well. And it's not teams that are going to have too much in terms of worries about rests, but Detroit, Miami, and Oklahoma City. Watch the Thunder and how far ahead they are. That is a busy period. Maybe Chet will be managed at some point during this. Watch on Hartenstein. Watch a little bit on Jalen Williams. Watch on guys like Alex Caruso and Isaiah Joe through this period because they've all had a little bit of nagging injuries through the season. But Detroit, Miami, and Oklahoma City have 6 games in 9 nights starting on Sunday, heading into Monday of week 20. When we take a look at the back-to-backs across this period, Sunday to Monday, but remembering Sunday's got 10 games. That's Sunday of week 18. They've got 10 games into Monday's 8. A lot of teams, though. Atlanta, Detroit, Indiana, the Clippers, Miami, Minnesota, Oklahoma City, and Washington. To begin the week, the Monday-Tuesday back-to-back, it's 1 team. It's the Hornets. We've spoken about the Hornets a lot. Charlotte's the only team. Tuesday to Wednesday, Boston, Houston, San Antonio, Toronto. So when we talked at the start about streaming, I said just choose anyone for Monday. And then look at a Tuesday, Wednesday back-to-back. Boston, you know that Al Horford and Porzingis are probably going to sit both his games there, so maybe look on it. Houston, well, Tari Eason's at risk there, but Cam Whitmore, Dylan Brooks. Whitmore's an iffy one because he might get DMP'd. But Jabari Smith, if he's available, he was pretty good last game. The Spurs, we've already talked about them a lot. Toronto, there are options in Toronto. It's Dick. Last game was Orlando Robinson. Well, he started over John Mobo. That was interesting, is that we talked about teams coming out of the All-Star break assessing things. Did they decide, well, John Mobo's not going to be it, it's going to be Orlando Robinson? Is that what they decided? Now, Robinson can't play every game for the Raptors because of a two-way contract. I think he's limited to half their games. But we pay attention to it. Thursday, Friday. Remembering Friday's a higher volume 10-game day. Is it usable? I don't know. Up to you. Find out. Denver, Lakers, Minnesota, New Orleans, and Phoenix have the Thursday, Friday back-to-back combination. And then the last grouping of back-to-backs, this is the pseudo back-to-back, the one that's going to be important for that stream for a lot of you. Thursday through to Saturday, Charlotte, you've got Dallas, Golden State, and Milwaukee. So that's obviously really useful in terms of being able to provide that value. And that is when we talk Charlotte, again, they've got 4 quality games. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. So you get 4 quality games out of them that way. Now, again, you could say, well, I could use one move on Charlotte and get that in, then add someone on Sunday. Get my 4 quality games for Charlotte. Get anyone in on Sunday. That's 5. That still gives you 10 quality games total. Right? You can't do better than 10 quality games using 2 slots. Unless there's a way that I can't find, that's the best way to do it. Friday, Saturday, might be hard to do. Don't know about Friday. Brooklyn, Detroit, and Memphis. And then the weekend back-to-back. We would love more from our perspective, but there's only one team. But at least at this moment, you've got guys like Castle, who last game, we thought, Castle might get more shots and more minutes. He played 13 minutes. He did have 45% usage in that game, but he didn't get more minutes. But then now, and then the annoyance of me saying, hey, maybe Sandro Mamakilishvili is an option, then he plays 0 minutes. Then, of course, the next game, when Charles Bassey returns, he plays 21. That shows the fickleness of fantasy basketball, is that I thought it has to make sense that Mamu plays. Who else are they going to play? There's no one there. Hey, let's try Mamu until Bassey comes back. And, of course, Mamu gets 0 minutes. I go, well, you know what? I was wrong. Then Bassey returns and Mamu plays 21 minutes and puts up the line that is exactly why I said that I thought Mamu was an ad. And now I go, I don't know. I still think Bassey is better than Mamakilishvili. But bloody hell. Frustrating. But you've got Barnes, Johnson, Champagny, Castle, Mamu, Bassey, maybe Biyombo. There's a lot of different options there for the Spurs across that little period. So that's the way we want to look at that. I don't want to go heavily into like injuries and that sort of stuff because I think, I've done that segment on this show, this weekly preview. I think it's a little bit of a waste, to be honest, because so much changes through the week, but that's okay. We do so many injury updates through the week anyway. What I want to get into now is talking about ads for weekly leagues. Now, there are no 2-game weeks on this week, so we don't have to worry about which 2-game players do we sit or start, but I'm going to give you 6 names here that you can take a look at that I know are 70% plus available on Yahoo, and you're able to grab them. And if you did grab them, you would start them in basically any weekly format. Yes, the Pelicans introduced a new wrinkle to their situation by not starting Jose Alvarado last game and deciding out of nowhere on his first game for the team, which makes absolutely 0 sense. Some of the coaching decisions yesterday were insane. And there'll always be one. Oh, real life basketball is very different to fantasy, my guy. That's not how it runs in fantasy. Yeah, I know, because I don't care about that for fantasy. It makes no sense for a player, Kelly Olynyk, who didn't report to the team at first. They said, stay away, my guy. Come in for your first game. And why don't you just start over Jose Alvarado? Why don't you start over our young guy, Carlo Makovic? That would make a lot of sense, wouldn't it? To start him and then play Zion Williamson as a 3. Which, again, makes no sense. That's got nothing to do with fantasy. Some of the decisions that the coaches make are just baffling. What decision is this? I don't get it. Anyway, Royce O'Neale, Jose Alvarado, Lonzo Ball, Chris Dunn, who's playing 1 million minutes. I don't know whether it will hold, but he's doing it. Yeah, it's frustrating with Matas Buzelis, but the Bulls announced that I had Isuma's got this shoulder issue with. I thought it was his wrist, but it's a shoulder. And I said, there's no timetable. Now, I know that'll scare you. You already know my thoughts on Desumil. I would not bother holding him if he's going to miss time. So he might miss all this week. So Buzelis, maybe, but they went to Julian Phillips last game. But we know there's no Patrick Williams. Now there's no Iota Sumu. You're getting random made-up injury terms for someone like Nick Vucevic on the injury report. Just keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on it. Jalen Smith's in concussion protocols. So, yeah, maybe we get a little bit more going on. Then there's little Chungus. Nikola Jovic, who played big minutes last game for the Heat. They went with a very weird rotation. But with 4 games in a weekly lineup lock league, he's available in a lot of spots. I do think it makes quite a bit of sense. It would also make quite a bit of sense for you to take up curling, send me videos of you curling, but also to double bang and subscribe to this show. Hit the old thumb, leave your comments down below. We're going to do a Sunday preview show, a Sunday streaming show with all 10 games covered, but we're looking at it from a, hey, these are who you stream in for individual categories and for individual points league formats. That's what we'll be doing. That's what we'll be covering. And while we're doing that, I hope you're enjoying it. And also, I want you guys to be enjoying whatever else you're doing that's not fantasy basketball, it's not this show related. Again, keep the positivity, be critical, but don't dwell. The amount of times I still get people going, man, I dropped this guy. Oh my God, I can't get over it. Oh, how should I regret it? And you know what my answer is to that stuff is? Who cares? Not because this game and sport is unimportant, because it's obviously very important to me. It's incredibly important. I take my job very seriously. Even though it's a silly game, but I take it very seriously. It's incredibly important to me and my family's livelihood that I do this well and that we all stay engaged with it. But the idea of sitting there and stressing, like, oh, I can't believe I dropped this guy 3 weeks ago. You know what worrying or regretting it does? Nothing. It doesn't do a single thing. It doesn't. You can't go back in time and change it. You can't go back and just reverse that move. It doesn't exist. So what do you do now? You just go, well, how do I fix it? Can I fix it to 100%? Maybe, maybe not. 80%, maybe 120%. Who knows? But regretting doesn't do anything. Panicking doesn't do anything. Just go, that's not good. What's my next move? On to the next. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.